on what is allowed to be recorded, but we don't want to potentially record anything with youth visible and have that get out into the wrong hands. Safeguard personal information for adults and youth. You can see I think Marshall called it the Brady Bunch platform, or somebody earlier mentioned the Brady Bunch, all the squares with it where we can see everybody's name. Hopefully, if you're doing this with your unit, when you're using it with youth, just have them use their first name, just so that their full name isn't visible and can potentially be searched later. Another reminder that 2Deep leadership applies to emails and to breakout rooms if you're using breakout rooms in Zoom. And when you're sending out emails, be sure and BCC all the participants until you have permission to share people's emails with everybody. Collecting personal information from youth under 13 is not recommended. Specifically when it comes to rosters, I know a lot of us that do Leave No Trace training will collect rosters for the trainer courses and such. We don't want to be sending out those rosters to everybody if they include youth information. So you want to be sure that you're not just sending out a full roster of names and contact information unless everybody's expressed permission to share that. And the parents need to be giving the permission on behalf of their youth in that case. One of the resources at the bottom of that digital safety and online scouting is the BSA social media guidelines. These are guidelines that pertain to things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those things. It's just good to keep on top of what requirements BSA has put out there. And a resource inside that resource is this BSA social media playbook. Now this hasn't been updated since 2018, but it is a brief PowerPoint that you can scroll through and get updates on how to use social media within BSA guidelines. And then the last thing I'll touch on, Paul mentioned it in his presentation, is the Leave No Trace social media discussion guide. This is the downloadable PDF. It's 4 pages, and we'll actually put the PDF into the resources that we share with y'all. But it's got some recommendations for using social media, some articles that are related, and then also some activities. So that is our presentation on digital safety and online scouting. Back to you, Marshall.
Wow, we're moving along quicker than I thought. We did have a question I can handle right now about youth under 14 taking a Leave No Trace trainer course. Of course, we cannot have someone under 14 taking it. So that would resolve at least that issue. Okay, we're going to turn to Matt for some teaching in the digital world.
All right, thank you, Marshall. Before we go right on to me, we're going to do a quick online survey just to kind of see where everyone is from. We've got a lot of people all over the country here. So here we go. So you're going to see a map show up on your screen there with a website. This is a website that is very useful for teaching online for any course that you're doing. It's Poll EV, and then we'll talk more about it later. But if you want to go to this website here on your phone or in another screen, right up here at the top, pollev.com/MatthewDura146, and then just tap or click on the state where you're from, and we'll be able to see where everyone's from.
I don't know where Andrew's going to put himself. Out in the ocean somewhere.
All right, we got a Colorado, we got a Delaware, Texas, Virginia, more Texas. More Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland. All right, some Northeast, some Midwest, New York, Massachusetts, Missouri, Wisconsin, more Missouri. All right, now we're getting some responses. All right, so this is a good, let's see, we got a couple chats right here. All right, it says the poll is full. So we know there's a lot more spots on the map that are shown there, but look, if we look at this, it kind of shows us that we've got a spread of people pretty much from coast to coast. We know there's a few in California there. But this is kind of a fun activity, and you can make polls that are different, but this kind of gives us a good view of just how far spread we are here. So thanks for participating in that poll. We're going to go ahead and go on to the next presentation here. So let me share the screen real quick. All right, here we go. Okay, so one of the big things that we need to talk about is how to adapt the things that we do in a regular outdoor ethics training, whether that be a 101 course or an orientation or a trainer course, or any other kind of thing like that. How do we adapt what we normally do for the digital environment that we're currently in? So we've got a couple terms to go through. And a couple ideas for how to, especially how to bring the outdoors indoors. So some of the things that we're really used to doing in standard training, obviously outdoor ethics training is best done outdoors. We would all prefer to be sitting in the woods somewhere having this discussion, but unfortunately we can't. Being face-to-face and personally interactive it's much better as well in a live format. We can't really do that in the virtual format. We can still have personal interaction like we're doing right now, but I can't reach out and touch you. I can't give you this object to look at or physically interact with you to do certain activities. So we have to kind of think our way around those limitations. Also, the question and answer dynamic is a little bit different. On Zoom, I can ask a question and who knows what's going to happen on the other end, how many people are going to answer all at once, or if I can even see everybody's screen with somebody's raising their hand. But there are a lot of ways that we can do that standard in a standard course where we're face-to-face. And that kind of makes the discussion a little bit different. It's hard to have discussions in a virtual format like we would normally have in a classroom setting, just because everyone can't talk at the same time. It's a little bit slower and clunkier to get that, but there are ways to do that. Also, in a standard teaching format in a classroom, we can do all the games and activities that we want. In a virtual training, there's actually even a greater need for games and activities. We're going to have a great session on that in a few minutes, but there's a greater need for those games and activities to keep it interactive, to keep people's attention, and to keep people from falling asleep on you and to keep them participating. And then finally, with everything we do in scouting, the EDGE method. We try to implement that into our trainings, but online, it's very, very difficult to do that. Or some parts of it are more difficult than other parts. Explaining is pretty much the same. We can explain away, kind of just like what I'm doing right here. We can explain, demonstrating something can be done through uses of video or other resources like that. But guiding and enabling is a little bit more difficult in the virtual world. And sometimes that takes some more follow-up. Sometimes that takes some, some more after the fact personal interaction. It can be done, but it's a lot harder to do. So let's go on to a couple of terms here that need to be discussed. Synchronous versus asynchronous. These terms are a little bit out there, but they're becoming more and more important to know as we move more into the digital world with training. And in the discussion that follows this, we're going to talk about some of the technologies that deal directly with each of these formats. So synchronous basically means teaching in real time, face-to-face, exactly what we're doing right here. Although we're all present all the way across the country, we are interacting personally right now. So this would include technologies like Zoom, Skype, Google Meet. It's great for a question and answer discussion. The personal actions are a little bit more limited, but we are able to have them. We're able to talk to each other and in one way, shape, or form, see each other. Asynchronous is the opposite of that. This would be, for example, if you go and visit a website, that is an asynchronous experience. Nobody is there on that website really interacting with you. So this would be like pre-recorded material. There's very limited interaction because we're not on the website at the same time. Having a discussion, a question and answer discussion is possible, and I'll show you some ways to do that a little bit later. But it's even more limited than what we're doing right now. However, this type of technology is great for self-study and time limitations, especially if you're doing courses that attract people around the country. Everyone's in a different time zone, and that doesn't matter because if it's a website that you're accessing where information is stored, people can access it at any time that they choose. That information is always there. It's always in presentation mode, meaning that what you put on the website, if the link is not working, if the pictures are broken, if things like that, it doesn't really work. It has to be on its A game, and it has to be set up and ready to go in order for it to work. And then finally, it requires some type of material hosting, which may require a subscription to a website or a learning management system. But that's one of the things that you want to be aware of with that. But a combination of both of these technologies is really effective for any type of course. And again, we're talking the whole spectrum of outdoor ethics courses, from 101 courses to trainer courses. So moving forward, I want to show you some ways to maybe think around some of the challenges that presenting in either of these formats presents. All right. Oh, there. One too many slides forward. There we go. So, with synchronous technology, because you're meeting in real time, like we're doing right here, you want to make sure that the presentations are as interactive as possible. That keeps people's attention, and think of it just like you would in a classroom. If you stand and you point at this and you lecture about this, it's going to be a lot harder to keep people's attention. You may have people sleeping. But the difference here is someone on the other end can have their screen blacked out and muted, and they might not even be in the room and you don't know that. So if you want to keep their attention and keep them engaged in this, you're going to have to do some more interactive stuff. And I'll give you some examples of that in just a second. Games and activities can be included as part of the discussion, just like we would in a regular classroom. So you just have to kind of think about a little bit different about what those games are and how those activities are presented. It's also helpful to have a practice beforehand, especially with synchronous presentation, tech glitches can cause major delays. As simple as some of the things that you've seen, have happened in this discussion where, you might not know that you're muted and you're trying to present, or my slides are not, going exactly where I want to go. Or, even major things where in one particular case, we had a gentleman that gave an entire presentation and didn't know that he was not visible, or we weren't seeing anything that he was saying or hearing anything, and he finished his entire presentation without knowing it. So it's important to practice beforehand, because again, just like a standard classroom presentation, you got to be on your A game with this. Last week we put all of the stuff that we had prepared, and we gave a practice run for it, and we cleared up a lot of issues. So the next thing, like I mentioned earlier, it's best if the participants have their video on so it feels more like a conversation. And again, you want to be aware of what Paula and Chandra talked about earlier with youth protection guidelines. If you're recording it, you don't want to have kids with their video on or anything like that. But if it's off, you have no idea if your audience is engaged or not. So it's important to be able to see that. Overall, synchronous learning is most similar to the in-person training that we're used to, but it's less forgiving than asynchronous because it happens in real time. Mistakes are witnessed. You can't, go in and change the website and update it and then have people come and check it again and everything's fine. If you screw up on a synchronous training, you're basically doing it in real time. And mistakes happen. That happens. People can adapt, but be aware that that is one of the things. So I want to show you a couple activities here, or a couple tips to bring the outdoors indoors, because that's our biggest challenge, especially with digital learning and outdoor ethics. So when I do a training, I like to try and evoke that spirit of being outdoors. How do you feel when you're outdoors? How do you feel when you're looking, at a beautiful scene, or you're sitting in the woods and having this presentation? You're living it in real life. So I try and incorporate nature videos, virtual campfires, photography, nature sounds. So here's an activity that I like to do that really keeps, that really brings that feeling of the outdoors indoors. On YouTube, there's a whole slew of these kind of videos right here. A great resource is called More Than Just Parks. But we're going to take a second and we're going to enjoy the outdoors and feel that feeling of the outdoors together. And gets us kind of on the same page. So that's just a short example of one way to bring that feeling of the outdoors indoors. That was beautiful that we got to visit Grand Teton National Park together. And there are tons and tons of places that have videos like that you can share in this context. We've all shared that moment together. Now we're in the mood to talk about the outdoors, and it's a great tool to bring that feeling in. One other thing that is possible is, oh, no, stop. There we go. I mentioned nature sounds and photography as well that can bring that feeling of the outdoors. One of the things that I found a lot of success with is taking things out of the Leave No Trace 101 book and presenting them differently, thinking about the way that we present them. So if you look at this right now, you know, you're focused on this screen, you're focused on this snowy mountain, it feels like you're outdoors. And if we add this to it, you can hear the sound of the wind. And imagine we're talking about outdoor ethics, or you're thinking about that moment, the defining moment of your ethic, like that activity in the 101 book. It's a great way to bring everyone together and to make it at least feel somewhat like you're outdoors. All right, so those are some ideas for synchronous learning to kind of help bring that outdoorsy feeling in. Here's some things to consider when using asynchronous learning as well. This type of learning is really, really great for audiences that have limited time and availability because it can be self-paced. So for example, the trainer courses that we've been running, they still have to be 16 hours of content, 16 hours of training. It's really hard to get people to sit down at Zoom for 16 hours straight. And that's one thing you want to be mindful. So what a solution that we came up with is we had some sessions that were synchronous where we were on together for a few hours, but then we created a website that I'll show you in a little bit that has the bulk of the other material on it. And we spread the course out over the course of a week, of an entire week, so that people can come and get bits and pieces of information on the different days throughout the week according to the time that they have available, as long as they view all the information throughout that week. And it doesn't just have to be a trainer course. This can be good for any course that you want. But it's self-paced, and people can view that at their leisure. Now, the one thing you want to be careful with that is the amount of content that you can create, because it can be overwhelming if there's too much. And we actually ran into that problem where our participants were saying, hey, we're spending way more than 16 hours viewing this material. Can you cut it back a little bit? And I'll show you the solution that we came up with in the next presentation, but that is something that you want to be aware of. Just because you can post all the information doesn't necessarily mean you should post all of the information. But it's great for different time zones. It's great for limited time availability because it is always on. It's always accessible to anyone that has the web address. You can use your creativity all you want. You can incorporate any kind of learning activities, videos, games, quizzes, and written material that people can download and print off if they want to make whatever presentations you put on a website really shine and really sparkle. Any kind of pre-recorded videos and content work really, really well there. So if you go and you record presentations of the topics of the Leave No Trace principles, or of Tread Lightly information, or outdoor code, or whatever, you can pre-record your videos, and you can post them on this website so that people can see them at any time. And again, we'll talk more specifics in just a minute. But those are some tips to think about with that type of technology. So we're going to take the questions at the end, but think of the things that you want to ask, and we'll go ahead and turn it back over to Marshall to continue on.
Okay, well, don't go far, Matt, because you and Paul are up to talk about self-study technology and face-to-face technology.
Paul, do you want to go first, or do you want me to continue on?
Why don't I go first, and that way you can take a breath for a minute, and
Okay.
and then you can continue on. So I'm going to try something new and fancy here. How about that, guys? What do you think? So first off, I'll check. Can everybody see the screen? Can everybody hear me? Okay, not up. Good. I've learned my lesson there. So I'm going to take a moment here, more than a moment. I'm going to take about 15 minutes and go through and talk to you about some of the tools that are available for teaching online. And if I can just make a point here to Matt's, bring the outdoors in. I took this picture this morning on my walk, okay? And so I incorporate all the pictures in my charts, by the way, are taken within the last couple of weeks by me. And that's one way when I see this, I remember being outside, and it helps me a lot. So I like Matt's idea of bringing the outdoors in, and this is one way I do it. Okay, so my objectives are to help you learn how to set appropriate expectations for your online training, and to not tell you what the answer is, but tell you how you can go about finding the answer. What's the best tools for what you would like to accomplish with your online training. And we're going to talk a little bit about overlap with what Matt does, but I'm going to kind of come at it from a tools perspective, some of the special considerations and techniques for teaching online. Okay, first off, I found that some people don't know all the terms here, so I'm going to talk about a few terms. We've talked about having a waiting room and how important that is. What is a waiting room? A waiting room is basically you're put on hold, just as for those of you who came earlier to this session, we were in the waiting room. We were waiting for the meeting to start, and our host, Matt, had to allow us to enter. So the waiting room is how we can protect and make sure that the only people we want in the course are in the course. So waiting room is a feature that is incredibly important for it. Breakout rooms is another thing that you've heard mentioned, and not everybody knows what they are. A breakout room is basically you take your online course like we are now, and if we went into smaller discussion groups, we would break up and it would feel like we are in smaller meetings, but we never logged out of this one and signed into a new one. We just went into that smaller meeting. When that smaller meeting is over, we're able to end them and all come back together into the main meeting room. So it's very useful for discussions and activities that need smaller numbers of people. It's really good to have. Chat, hopefully most of you have already discovered the chat window here and have that open. It's a great way not only for what we've been doing here, but as part of the activities, as you saw, some people were unable to go online so they could respond in the chat. Sometimes you can use chat as a just as a tool in your teaching. You're going to collect answers through chat as you do that. You can also share files through chat. So somebody has something, you're giving a presentation, hey, I'd like you to look at this file. You can share the file through chat. So chat's a very useful tool for teaching online. And finally, a whiteboard. A whiteboard is a screen that you can put up, and then you can mark up from your computer, and also you can allow your students to mark it up. So think of the example where you've got a map of a potential campsite, and you say, where would be a good place to put that tent, Paul? And Paul goes and marks it, and you say, well, Paul, okay, thank you. Okay, Matt, could you show me where you would perhaps put that tent? So it gives you a chance to do some interactive things like that. So that's what a whiteboard is. So those are important things, I think, for folks to know. So think about, how do you plan to teach? Because that really will drive what kind of tool you pick. If you're just going to do presentations like what I'm doing right now, where I'm just talking to you and I'm not looking for any discussion, we're not doing any activities, there's nothing particularly interactive about what we're doing, then pretty much any number of people will do. As you know, we've got a very large group here and this works well for this kind of setting. But if we wanted to have discussions, we have far too many people to have an effective discussion in this group. So think about that, and that's going to drive the decision as you go to that. If we're going to have activities, you know, probably the same thing. You want to have smaller groups for that. So that starts to say, okay, I really need something that's going to do breakouts because I'm going to have too many people to be able to do this effectively. So think about those kinds of things. Think about things like, okay, how long do you want your sessions to be? You know, once again, I would say a 2 hour is a maximum session I'd recommend for adults or older youth. And you know, as they get younger, I'd make them shorter than that. So think about how long the sessions are you want to be leading. And once again, I talked about the smaller groups, and here's the all important one, because we're all in Scouts and we all know it's only an hour a week and it doesn't cost any money, but we all have budgets. And so what, you know, if your budget is free, you can get a lot, you can do a lot of really great stuff, but you can't do everything you can do if you can have some money. So you need to think about what's your budget. Another thing you need to think about is, how strong is your broadband? If your connection's not great, it's no point in getting the fanciest tools and being able to do, you know, HD video and all these other kinds of things. That doesn't mean anything because you don't have the broadband to support it. Similarly, you need to think about the other end of the connection. Do your students, will they have broadband? Will they have a good connection in? How reliable do you think their connection is going to be? Are they going to be coming in on computers? Are they going to be coming in on phones? Are they going to come in on tablets? One of the mistakes I made early on was I made the assumption everybody's going to be like me. You're going to be coming in on a computer. Well, I had one student come in and all he had was a phone. He couldn't even print out forms I sent, you know, to him and stuff. He couldn't print out anything to look at. He had nothing like that. And it's just like, wow, you got to think about what are the students going to have at the other end in terms of putting your content together for the class. So here are the big three in the online meeting space. And if I could just give Paul's perspective on this here. Zoom is the biggie. Obviously, we're on it now. It's kind of come from the background of being an online conferencing service. That's where it's come from. And it's kind of expanding from there, but that's its core. Teams and Meet, on the other hand, are two very large corporations that are rounding out their enterprise communication tools that were built around file sharing and chat. And so, you know, in Microsoft Teams, you can find a chat that you had with somebody 6 months ago, and you can find all these kinds of things. And not much value to what we're doing in that. But those things, you know, can add some complexity to the tool and make it a little harder to use, in my opinion, than a Zoom is. And also, you have to think about what are your students likely to be familiar with. And I have to say right now, it seems like Zoom is the one that most everybody is familiar with. There are other services out there. I don't mean to say these are the only ones, but remember, as you look at them, you want them to have waiting rooms and you want them to have password protection for your meetings, and they don't all have that. Those are very critical security features, as you've heard twice already in this talk, so there was your third time. Once you've put all that together, you can start to put a chart like this together and start to figure out, okay, which is the right one? Which one should I go with? What fits? I put this chart together as an example, and it says, okay, well, you know, I'm really going to need to do breakout rooms, and I'm really going to need a whiteboard that's going to be really important for what I'm doing. Well, I put this chart together, and I look at it, and I say, well, Teams doesn't do breakouts. At least they say they're going to, but they haven't done it yet. And Meet doesn't have a whiteboard. Okay, that kind of says I'm going to do Zoom. Okay, well, Zoom is free as long as I keep my meetings to 40 minutes or less. But for $15 a month, or I can get a discount if I pay for a year in advance, I can have, you know, basically unlimited meetings if I have Zoom. Well, so now I'm down to, okay, I'm going to use Zoom. Can I deliver in half-hour chunks or 35-minute chunks, whatever? And because if things run over, you don't want to be cut off. Or am I going to have to bite the bullet and pay? Or am I going to have to change what I'm doing down here so I can find something? Anyway, this will guide your thought process as you go through and pick what it is. I know at least one person who was setting this up for all of us, and thank you very much to him for doing that, was looking for me to come out and say, here's the answer, everybody should get Zoom. And that's not the right answer, because for different people, you're going to have different requirements and different budgets, and you need to find the one that works right for you. Another comment now, when using websites, so Poll Everywhere that we just used as an example, you could use Jeopardy Labs or Kahoots or Kahoot, whatever you're using on there. Most of them are ad financed. So you want to really take a look at them multiple times, see what kind of ads are going to be popping up. If you're going to be using one of these things, be conscious of what the ads are going to be that pops up. If you're going to be using something that has content already on it, you need to take time, proofread everything, make sure the content's all right. I can tell you on Jeopardy Labs that I've seen some games be brought up and some of the answers were just wrong in there, so be able to check that. And the other thing to think about is, will all the students be able to participate? For example, Kahoot, if you want to be competitive in that, you need to have your smartphone and use that as your remote so you can answer quickly. So think through some of these things as you prepare your technology plan. Now we're back at home and you're thinking about setting the stage. What is it you're going to do? Okay, if we're doing an in-person presentation, we're always going to think about, we're going to get there early. We're going to make sure that there's seating, that things are, you know, comfortable, that the noise isn't too bad. We're going to check all that. Similarly, you need to be checking things when you're setting your stage for your online course. Think about lighting. One of the big problems people will have is that they're dark because our rooms usually aren't as bright, you know, as the camera perhaps would like them. What I've done here, and you can't tell because if you can't see behind my display, you can only see the front of it, right? But anyway, what you can't see is I've got a shop light set up right behind my display here. So it shines on the white wall and it comes back at me, and that's how I kind of light myself in here. So you can think about things. It might just be bring a lamp close, something along those lines. So think about your lighting. Think about your camera angle. If you're using a laptop, you're going to have this kind of angle on people, you know, because you're looking down at it. And so you don't want to be have your students feel like you're looking down on them the whole time. So take your laptop, prop it up on some books or a box or something and make it high. You want your camera to be at or a little bit above your eye level. And that's going to look good for your students. Microphone, I use a headset. And if you've got one, I recommend it. It keeps your voice voice level. Sometimes you might go over and be jotting some notes down and still talking, whatever, and it keeps it constant for that. It also helps block out background noise. So that's a good way to go. And if there is noise, you know, around me, I can still hear what's going on in the course because I've got a headset here. Background image, it's good to use background image. I almost always do. It just blocks out any distractions that are back there. You're trying to figure out what the heck's that on his wall, or the dog walked past, or any of those kinds of things. It helps with those. Take time to learn the technology, and really the way to do it is you got to take time and practice it, play with it. This afternoon, this talk I'm giving right now, I gave 4 times this afternoon. I recorded it each time and I checked myself out. Part of that was because I was told I had 15 minutes. First time I did it, it was a half hour. I thought this isn't good. So I had to cut things out and figure out what all I'm going to do to fix that. And I also found this new beta technology that lets me show myself on the screen here, which I thought was pretty cool. And so I had to make sure that seemed reliable, because I tried it, you know, I tried it 4 times before I used it with you guys. So I felt like it was working at that point. If you've got a team, you need to rehearse as a team, because if technology happens, as it often does, different people will have to take over for each other. You need to know what the other people are doing. You need to be able to make the class consistent if you're doing any team teaching online. And that brings up the whole thought that technology happens and lines will go down, computers will freeze, all these kinds of things will happen. If you can have a backup instructor, a second instructor on the course, it's always best if you can do that and have them on board, because if something happens, there's somebody there who can pick up for you. And it's good to have a backup technology plan. So one of the things I did on this is I checked and I made sure that, well, if all else fails, I could do this on my phone. It wouldn't be as nice, but I could at least give my presentation using the phone. So think about those kinds of things as you do your courses as well. And this kind of backs up what Matt was talking about. Make it interactive. You really want your online time to be interactive. Use asynchronous technology, as Matt was talking, for all the things that don't have to be interactive. Don't make your sessions too long. You don't want to bore people, so that you just don't want to bore people. Remember that you plan for the lowest common denominator of technology, because that's what's going to gate success for all your students, and that's what we really want. We want all of our students to be successful. Rehearse, rehearse. And hybrid is very good. By hybrid, I mean things like that Lego exercise where you perhaps send home a task for the students that they are to do before the online session starts, and they're going to build something with their Legos, and they can come on and they can all show them on the class. That is how you really build interaction and make the kids engaged with the class. So those kinds of things are really, really good to do. And also, it's just some other things. Change things up during class, just like you do in a regular in-person class. I have the greatest voice in the world, but you only need to hear it for so long before you starts to get drony. Keep your videos short when you're using online, because once again, if it's a longer video, it's probably better to do that as an asynchronous thing before or after the online session, rather than to use up your precious online interactive time for a video. Other things you can do is you can use hand signals you can answer a question in the class. Okay, guys, what'd you think of that? Okay, give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down, whatever. You can do those kinds of things. If you want to get creative, you can say, if you like this one, put the hand on top of your head. If you like this one, put your hand on your chin. You can just do all kinds of different things to get answers from students. If you're going to ask open-ended questions, ask them to a particular question, to a particular student, rather. Don't ask the whole group. And as we did today, if you're going to recite things together, just have the leader be the only one that's not on mute. And finally, I think a lot of people were hoping that I'd come in and say, okay, this is how you use Zoom, and this is how you start set up a breakout room, and this is how you do it. Well, that's way too deep for what we can do in this, but there are tons of great educational videos out on YouTube or on Zoom, for example. You can find good videos on Google Meet. You can find good videos on just about anything that you want to do. So go out and check those out, and that's how you learn to actually push the buttons on the thing. It's more important that you've got the right thing to be pushing the buttons on than it is that you learn how to push the buttons. Pushing the buttons and it's not doing what you need, it's not worth pushing the buttons. So that is my really quick presentation here. It's been a fire hose. Really look forward to hearing your questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Matt.
All right, thanks, Paul. So my portion, I'm going to talk about the type of technology that's not face-to-face, the asynchronous technology, where you're setting up a website or storing documents or things like that. And we're going to, similar to Paul, we're going to get into very few of the how does this technology actually work, and more of a here are some ideas and some resources for places that you can find this technology. There was one question about where I got the wind sounds earlier. Honestly, all that was is I have I went to Amazon and I Googled nature sounds, and several albums came up, and I just downloaded one of the albums. Excuse me, that had a mix of things that I liked. So, so that's that was fairly simple where I found that. Just off of Amazon, I downloaded a nature sounds album. And then I incorporated it into my presentation via PowerPoint. There's a way that you can add audio into your presentation. So we're going to take a quick tour of some websites and resources where you can find asynchronous technology. The first thing we want to talk about are websites and learning management systems, or LMS. Learning management systems are very, very powerful tools for online learning. If any of you have ever taken or taught an online course, chances are that you have probably used a learning management system. These are things like Canvas, Teachable, Moodle, Blackboard. Those are all different types of learning management systems, and they all have very similar capabilities and very similar way of doing things. So I want to show you, we set up a Moodle learning management system to run the particular courses that we've done for Crossroads of the West Council. So let me share this with you real quick. There we go. All right, is everyone able to see this?
Yes.
All right, good. Okay, so this is set up from the last course that we did. And I started this in the spring. So we've now offered 6 courses. We've got 1 more this month. And in setting up the basic framework of this, I did it once, and all I have to do is change certain things in or out to update it for the newest course. So this is a Moodle website. Here is the website for Moodle. I chose this particular one because it's an open source platform, meaning you can get pretty much all of the functionality without any kind of subscription or anything. Now you can get some additional functionality with the subscription, and I went ahead and did that just to be safe, but we ran at least 2 courses without any kind of subscription or anything, just off of this, which is why I chose it. And so one of the main points here is when all of this started happening with having to put everything online and having to move to that format, I was as well equipped and knowledgeable as the next guy in the room. Really all I did was a whole bunch of Google searches about things, and I have had a little bit of experience teaching online. I work also for the University of Utah, so I did have a little bit of information about what they use specific to them, but setting up one on your own is an entirely different story. So with a little bit of Google help, I looked at different learning management systems and came to the conclusion that this was probably the best one for the particular needs that we had. Now, I'm not advertising this. It's a good resource if this is one that you want to use, or if you have another one that works well for you that you can set up, that's perfectly fine as well. Going back to what Paul mentioned, it may be a budget thing as well. If your council is supportive of this and wants to funnel a little bit of money into it, that can be helpful. But setting up something like this, they're usually fairly user-friendly. There are also tutorials as well. So this is the website for the Moodle video tutorials, where they tell you how to set up presentations, create content on the website. There's always information about how to do specific things. So if we look back at this actual website, the nice thing about a learning management system is, number one, it's a secure and stable place where people can access information at any time. Secure being that in order to access it, everyone has to be issued a username and a password. So for each course, I put in the email addresses and the usernames and passwords for every person that joins this course. It is a little bit labor intensive, but when you get used to it, it takes me between 10 and 15 minutes to get everyone set up in it. That way, you can't have Joe Schmo from Mississippi coming in and barging in your course and making alterations and doing anything like that. You can set it up so that it's secure like that. You can also allow others to have editing rights. So the teachers in our courses are able to come in here and add content as they need it, but the students are not able to do so. They're just able to go through the material. The other nice thing about a learning management system such as this is you can track the progress of the participants. This is really, really important, especially for a trainer course, because we do have the specific things that you have to cover for a trainer course. The time allotment and the topics are the same in the virtual format. You still have to cover all the principles. You still have to cover, everything that the center says you have to cover, plus everything the BSA says you have to cover. It has to be 16 hours. And so this gives you a way to make sure that everyone is viewing the material because it has the functionality of checking the progress of all of the people that are enrolled in your course. So a quick tour going through this. I mentioned earlier that it's really hard to have discussions in an asynchronous format, but there is a discussion tool in almost every learning management system. So right here, we asked, what are your goals for this course? And people were able to come post on this. They can reply to each other, just like a format like when you're commenting on Facebook or commenting like on a news article or something. It's the same type of thing. We're able to have these type of conversations. They're not in real time, but we are able to look at all of these. Then, as far as the matter of meeting the requirements for a trainer course. Now, again, I'm talking trainer course specific here, but this can be used for a 101 course. It can be used for any kind of outdoor ethics training that you want to do. But they have to cover those 7 principles. They have to cover why the need for leave no trace, history of leave no trace, all those kind of things. And this makes it so that we can spread this course out over a week. And the amount of time that people spend on this and in the synchronous sessions that we do equals out to the 16 hours. So the nice thing about this particular one is I can break it into the days. So on Monday, these are the things that we expect people in our course to do. Tuesday, this is what we expect, and Tuesday is when we have one of our Zoom meetings. So here's the info posted here. Wednesday, we expect them to go through these principles. Thursday, through these principles. Friday is another Zoom session, and Saturday is when we have all of their teaching, which is done synchronously via Zoom, and that information is put here. Plus, we have a course evaluation that they can click right here and take that, and it collects their answers online. So this has the functionality. If I want to edit this and make changes, I can turn the editing on, and then I can add things. So like here, add an activity or a resource. This is where I can add a link to a website or a picture or another activity. So if I click that, it's going to bring up all the different things that I can add here. I can even create assignments and quizzes for people on a learning management system. I can create a survey. I can create a lesson plan. Everything that I've put on here is actually in these books. We've decided to put all of our topics into books. So let me show you what a book looks like. In here, this is where the first one, why leave no trace, we kind of set the stage for thinking about, why this is important. And so some of the tools that I showed you earlier with the videos and the photography, we've put them here. So we had some written material. As you watch the following videos, take a moment and ask yourself these questions. Why do you enjoy nature? What are some impacts you have seen? And then I have some of the nature videos that I showed you earlier. So it kind of gets them in the mood to talk about and think about what leave no trace means to them. Over here on the right-hand side, we've got different chapters that apply to this particular topic. And I can add a chapter by clicking the plus button. I can edit it by clicking the little gear, or I can delete it by clicking the little garbage can. So the next page, we have a video about impacts and the impact monster skit. We have some information about the web of life, and we figured out a way to adapt this to this format. And then some other things about the BSA, some documents pertaining to that. Now, as I mentioned before, one of the issues that we really had a problem with was having too much information. So if we go here to, let's say, travel and camp on durable surfaces, there used to be 3 or 4 chapters here. And it was too much for people to go through. So what we did was we have the actual presentation as a video right here, some photos of impacts, and then at the bottom, we created a space for extra resources. If you go down to the bottom, or if you click on that, it takes you to a separate book on this page, and it has extra information that we've found for all of the principles of leave no trace and then some. This is all of the extra stuff that we didn't have time to put in the actual course that is available to everyone who takes the course. It's really kind of handy to have that. So you can get to it directly from each book, or you can get to it down here at the bottom, our supplemental materials. We're also able to upload any kind of course documents we want anyone to have. So things like the trainer course release or reading about authority of the resource, any of that kind of stuff we can put down here. The drawback for a learning management system, at least this particular one, is that it has very limited space to store things on a website. It only has 200 megabytes available, so everything has to be hosted elsewhere. And that's the next thing that I'm going to show you is how can you give people access to documents, access to videos, or create videos that you can then host on this, or you can show in a synchronous environment like Zoom, or share in any other method. So all of these videos that are on here, these are videos that me or the other instructors have created, and they've all been uploaded to my YouTube account. So right here, this is where all my videos for outdoor ethics and then the other things that I do are hosted. A YouTube account is free. You can upload all your videos you want there. But there is something that you want to make sure. All of these videos that I have posted here, if you look down below it, they are all unlisted. What that means is that only people who have the direct link to the video can view that video. So it's another secure feature that's very, very important in what we do. So if you go to YouTube and you type in, LNT trainer intro video number 3 right here, this isn't going to pull up because it's a private video. The only way that you can see this is directly through the link that I have posted right here. So if you click on it, hello everybody, my name is Matt Durant. I'm one of the instructors for this course. You're going to see, and I'd like to welcome you to, okay, and this is the only way that you can view that. So that's a setting that you can make when you upload a video to YouTube. You can make it unlisted, and I would recommend doing that just to make sure that everything stays safe and secure. If hosting videos on YouTube is not your thing, there are other places where you can host online material, such as a SharePoint, and that's through Microsoft Office. That's an app that they have. Or Google Drive is another one, and that's where this is the Google Drive for this particular course. So you can see all of the materials that have been uploaded into that so far. I did email out a link to that earlier. So that you can access this. I understand there are a few lingering issues with that, which we will resolve. But this is a place where you can host video material, you can host reading material, you can host anything really that you want to be able to let others access, download, and use. The next big question that comes up with any of this is, well, how do I create a video of myself teaching a topic that has the slideshow that's on my computer or has me in the corner somewhere? I want to show you a couple resources for that. The first one is Loom. If you just go to Google and type Loom video, it will bring this up. Loom is a free resource, and yes, it does have other tiers that you can purchase, but really, I haven't ever found the need to purchase this particular program because everything that I want to do, I can do with just the free version. And so what Loom does is it captures your screen. So whatever you're presenting on the screen, whether it be a slideshow or whether it be all of these websites that I'm showing you, it will capture that, and it will also capture your voice and whatever audio is coming through the computer. And it will look similar to what they're showing here on the right hand side of their screen. They'll have a little picture, and you can turn this off if you want, but they'll have a little bubble that shows you talking, and then it'll show you the work that's being done on the screen. You can annotate it, you can scroll through it, you can play videos, whatever you want to do, but you're able to do that. And so all of the presentations that I have created on this website are using something similar to that. So if we go in here, this presentation I created using screen capture software and then uploaded to YouTube and then posted it on
that
here.
back. Okay.
So this
and
is
then
just
artifacts
a
are interesting because of
presentation
their
slideshow.
context, not at home on your shelf. So if you bring that arrowhead home and you put it on your shelf, what's going to happen?
Okay. Finally, the last thing that I want to show you here on this is another one called Movavi. It's really the same kind of thing as Loom. It's screen capture technology that will record your voice. It will also record whatever audio you have on the computer and turn it into a video that you can use and then post to a website. I know this probably brings up a lot of questions, probably a lot more than it answered, but that's why we're going to have at the end of this a question and answer, and you can always contact any of us and we'll help you with any of this, with any questions that you have. And then finally, never underestimate the power of printed material. There's no reason why we can't mail things out or we can't ask people as part of the course to get a printed resource, or just use good old email to email out any kind of reading material that we want people to have in advance. All right, with that said, we'll turn it back over to Marshall to continue on.
Oh, I think it's time to play some games and talk about some activities. We've been listening to you guys. We have some questions that we're going to get to, Brendan and Mark, and about some of the things that Paul and Matt just gave us. We'll get to that in a moment, but it's game time. So Chandra and Paula.
Let me see. Did I get over my disease from Paul? I think I did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay! Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about interactive games and activities. Chandra, next slide. Our goal is to for you to learn to teach and play games with a purpose using technology. Realize the importance of debriefing so you'll understand the why while having fun. Okay, we're going to address different types of learning styles. We're going to use trusted platforms or websites. We're going to debrief your game, or why it's important to debrief your games and activities, just like you would at an in-person session. Okay, so in the beginning, when we got started, we had a gathering activity, and it was just a little memory game that you can use as something to keep people engaged while you're starting. And also it had information on the slide that told you that at some point in this little presentation, we're going to do an activity, and I hope everybody has a pencil and a piece of paper. And so the memory game was just to get you involved and welcome you to the course. Next slide. Chandra.
So polling is something else you can use as an activity. It's an opportunity to engage your participants with questions. It's less about trying to test them, but more as a way for you as the presenter to get some feedback and make sure people are, one, awake, and two, actually sitting behind their screen, because it's hard to tell what people are doing when they don't have their video on. A side note, almost all the meeting platforms, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Hangout, and Meet, they all have polling features built in to the system, but it may be something you might have to go watch a YouTube video or see some more information on how to use it. But there is the poll everywhere. Matt led us in the map earlier, so you got to experience that, but they have other little quizzes and sessions that can be done there. You do need to be cognizant. I think for the free version, you are limited on how many people can participate. So if you are having a large size group like what we have today, you might want to look at the paid version so you can get more people involved on that. Okay.
Okay, so everybody get your paper ready and get your pencil. And before Chandra turns to the next slide, there's going to be an art lesson. So just watch what you see and do what it says. So we have a nice little animal, that a worm or a bug that lives underground. So would everybody like that did picture hold it up to their camera so other people can see it?
Nice.
Nice. Oh, excellent. So there are, on that website, there are other things that you can draw that they take you through step by step like that. But the reason we like this one is that we talk about travel and camp on durable surfaces, because underneath where we walk in that compacted dirt or the very nice loose dirt live little critters like that. And we have to be careful where we step all the time, that we don't start making the ground compact more than just being on the trail. Okay. So we told you ahead of time that we were going to need a pen and a paper. We said it on the gathering activity and another warning in between. So hope everybody got to draw the picture. All right, Chandra?
Okay. So just to sum up the creative arts, it's an opportunity to engage the participants in something that leans more artistic. Be sure they have the supplies on hand to participate. And another tip would be know your audience. Don't pick a drawing or a activity here that's going to be too difficult, especially for our youth. This particular video, there are all kinds of critters that he draws out there. It's a group, I guess, called Artico, and there's a link, and we will provide this PowerPoint so you guys can have all these links as resources. Another type of activity you can engage with is game shows. It's an opportunity to get them, your participants, involved in a fun group game, create some competition. Some of these may require participants to log in via their phone. So for example, with the poll EV earlier, some of you logged in through your phone to make it easier, or maybe had to toggle between screens. So be aware of how they're going to get to the game platform. Use platforms that your youth may already be familiar with. Kahoot in particular is one. It's kind of like a game show platform that many of the kids are utilizing through school already. But I have seen, especially during this past year with COVID lockdown, a lot of units creating quiz games for their troops or patrols to engage with through Kahoot. When you sign in and create an account, you can actually search through other games that have already been created. So you'd be surprised when you log in and do a search for Leave No Trace, what else is already out there that you could potentially use. Again, we do recommend that you do a trial run with everything, just to make sure that it is appropriate and something, not quite right isn't slipped in accidentally if you're not the creator of it. Jeopardy is another game that many people are familiar with. This website here, jeopardylabs.com, you can go in and create your own Jeopardy game board and create a game show that way. So finally, we're going to talk about adapting your favorites. As scouters, many of you may be familiar with having to create a campfire experience without fire. We've done the fan with crepe paper, red and orange crepe paper, or glow sticks. So in much the same way, we're having to be very creative with how we bring activities to the virtual platform. Earlier this year, in end of March, April timeframe, the regional coordinators actually pulled together and helped to modify some of the requirements for the Outdoor Ethics Awareness Award to be able to be done on a virtual platform. So that's this first link here, the Keep on Scouting from Home. If you go out to the outdoorethicsbsa.org website, you can actually find activities that meet those requirements, but that are easily modified for the virtual platforms. There's another link here provided. This is just a scouter's blog that I came across where she's already gone through and created several virtual games that her own kids are using for their unit, but an example of how do you run bingo through the virtual platform, but she's got several others out there as well. A lot of these, the memory game, if you were here earlier and got to try that memory game link out, those cards were actually taken from Bigfoot's playbook. So a lot of things that are provided on Leave No Trace website can be converted into a virtual platform. The Leave No Trace social media discussion guide that we shared with you earlier, there's several activities on there that are listed as well that could be modified for a virtual platform. So a lot of it's just putting a creative twist on how to conduct the activity. So in summary, we have a few more tips. I think I covered these. Always conduct a test run, especially if you don't create the game or activity yourself. Be sure your participants have the needed supplies on hand in advance. Watch your time. Games and activities can quickly eat up a big chunk of your time if you're not careful. And with all things, we recommend debrief your activities to show what the why of the activity, tie it back to what the lesson that you're trying to teach. Ask your participants for feedback, especially if you're repeating a course regularly and want to know how things are being received. Ask them for feedback and determine how can you improve on the activity or game, or does it need to be set aside and look for something else. But the most important thing is make it fun, especially if the youth are involved, because they are so tired of looking at a Zoom screen for class already. So we want to keep them entertained where we can. So thank you. Marshall, back to you.
Okay.
Marshall,
Rita-
wait a Marshall.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
was muted.
Oh,
I do want to say one thing. I want to thank Sandy Smith from Utah, who teaches on the CWC course. She opened my eyes to a lot of these virtual games that I hadn't seen before, and to a lot of other people as well. So a shout out to Sandy. She did a great job.
terrific. Okay. We have 20 minutes to pose and answer some questions. So the questions that have come across chat up until now, I believe have all been answered. So if you have new questions, fire away. A couple that are worth repeating, though, one that came in, would there be a recording of this that you can tap into on a later date? And the answer is yes. So that will be the case. There was a specific question about Matt's Moodle program and whether that is available.
So to answer that question, one of the things with that particular site and with most LMSs is it has a limited number of participants. So it's limited to 50 people that can participate in it at any one time, just because that's the level that I have bought into. What I may be able to do is set up one observer account that I can give you the username and password to, and allow you to access and observe the course in that way. But I'm not able to just grant you general access to it, because I'd have to set up a username and a password for each of you, and then I wouldn't have the room for the actual course participants, if that makes sense. But if there ever is a time that you do want to observe a course, let me know, and I can certainly set you up to observe a specific course if you'd like. I'll get back to you about coming up with kind of just a purely observational account that I can give out generally. But I think I'm somewhat limited on what I can do as far as just giving you open access to the particular page, if that makes sense.
And I guess there was a further add to that, which was simply, can I take that course that you did and use it? How would I do that?
The short answer to it is, unless you're given like specific admin privileges on it, and I like give the website to you, that particular one probably couldn't. But the thing is that I can give you the ingredients to it, so that you can mix and match and use them and bake your own cake, if that makes sense. Like all the videos that are on there, all the material and everything, I can send that stuff to you. I just can't give you full use privileges of the specific website, if that makes sense. So if there's any resources on there that you want, or anything that you saw that you like, I can definitely hook you up with a way of being able to take that and use it in a way that you would like to use in your own council.
So to the group at large, several of you have asked questions related to that. If that does not answer all of your questions, unmute yourself and ask Matt the question. Not hearing anything? I think we have resolved that.
And you can always, the email that you received, the link for the Zoom from earlier, I personally oversee that email, so you can ask any of these questions anytime through that email, and I can send you information and whatnot. And I'll be happy to, if you want, I can Zoom with you or do anything else that you'd like to do to help get you set up.
Other questions out there? You know, if you, at the end of this, you're going to have a question. You just need to think about it now.
And we totally realize that this is like fire hose to the max. It's a lot of information in a short amount of time. So we're doing the best that we can.
I did see a lot of people are asking for the PowerPoints and those things, and that's all going to be in the Google Drive, isn't it, Matt?
Yes, most of those are already uploaded into the Google Drive. I think Ross Stoll, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. I'm having a problem using chat. I guess I could ask if anybody is using or trying to use Classroom from Google, if they could send me a note, I'd appreciate that, so I could ask them questions. Since we have a nonprofit Google Suite with our council that we're supposed to try to use.
Okay,
Who's asking the question? Because we've been using Google Classroom.
that was Ross Stoll.
Where are you from, Ross?
Walk Mountain Council, Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, Ross, we use Classroom. So Heidi and I'm from South Dakota. Heidi and Gary are from Minnesota. We use Classroom for our last trainer course here in October, and we'll do it again in December.
Okay.
So I set it up. I'm a teacher, so I use Classroom. So it was easy for me to set it up that way.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I'm looking through the chat listings to see if there are any other questions that we haven't answered. But if anybody has a question, please feel free. And I need to reiterate that if you have questions afterwards, please get them to us, get them to me, and I'll get them individually to Matt or to Paul, to Chandra or Paula, and we will get you answers. It seems that most have been answered. Here's one. There have been a couple of questions about how do we know if someone is recording this? And as far as I know, I would not know if someone is recording this. The problems that we have, for our perspective, is really with our youth. So we want to be extraordinarily careful on protecting their personal information. Now, Karen tells us that the upper left-hand corner shows that the session's being recorded. I get that, but I think that's by the host, is it not? Would it be by anybody? If anybody knows the answer to that question?
Even if you're not the host, up at the top part of the screen, there's usually an indication that it's being recorded. So right now, this is being recorded. If you look at the top of your screen, there should be somewhere that has like a red dot that shows that it's being recorded.
And so
it's
Matt,
often next to a small green shield with a check in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you enter a room that's being recorded, if the recorder is already turned on, you get the option to leave the room because it warns you that it's being recorded.
I just hit the record button and it popped up with a box that says, please ask the host to give you permission to record.
yeah.
Yeah, that's because the session overall is being recorded by the host. So what will happen after this point is this will be saved as a file. at a website, and then I will send that website to everyone so that you can come back and you can access this recording of the course.
Other questions?
So if I jump in, the question was about how did I put myself down in the corner of the PowerPoint. If you go to share screen, you guys can all check in and see what it looks like right now. If you do a share screen and you hit the advanced tab at the top, you'll see a PowerPoint as virtual background up there. And that's what I used to do that. So you guys can try that at home.
And in order to get to that menu, if you look at your little green share screen button, there is a small up arrow right next to it. If you click on that, it brings up a menu, and there's the advanced sharing options right in that menu. And Dawn, you have shared your screen with us.
Thank you, Bill McMahon. Yeah, Dave Smith does have a good point. If we want people to pay attention to whatever the presentation is, if they're constantly looking at the chat box, that will somehow divert them from full time and attention. No question about that. We used chat today because it was the easiest way for us to get questions from you. So it doesn't have to be done that way when you're teaching a small group.
So I see a question there about guidelines. You know, the trainer course, the center has put out guidelines that, you know, no more than 12 students, you know, it has to be the full 16 hour, you know, all those kinds of things that's put out. And there really isn't any similar kind of guidance that I'm aware of from the BSA for like outdoor ethics orientation or Leave No Trace 101 or any of those courses. But then again, I don't think there was ever any guidance before the things were virtual either, other than the syllabus, you know, that was put out for each of those courses.
Is this Paul talking?
Yeah, this is Paul. Yeah.
Those are actually all controlled by the subcommittee?
They are.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And so I think that's, I guess I'm not sure what other guidelines there would be to expect.
We would assume that you would put on the same course that you might do live virtually. 3 hours for the 101 course, the orientation course, however one teaches that, an hour and a half, 2 hours. Teach each of the components. And you can be as inventive as you all are.
Yeah. I would recommend, if you're thinking about putting on a trainer course, talk to one of the folks who've put it on, Matt, myself, Heidi, I believe, has put one on, Heidi Groven. I'm not sure who else may have. And get some feedback from one or more of us. You know, there were a lot of bumps as we got going with our first courses, and we'd be glad to steer you around those bumps as you get going yourself.
I've done one as well, Paula.
Yep.
And one of the things I'd like to sort of bring up is that it may well be that for the next, well, even though the the center has not put out any new guidelines after their December 31st deadline. I am sure they will, but you should also know that the hybrid course may be our future for the next 6 to 9 months. And a hybrid course could in fact be 1 or 2 nights of virtual training, and then maybe an in-person session without sleeping over, without cooking meals per se, done it with social distancing and masks. It's something that is, at least in my mind, quite feasible. Now, you'd have to talk to your camps and you'd have to know your state laws and a number of other things, but it's certainly something to be thinking about. It has been done. Bob Serhal from Narragansett did a version of it, and I'm sort of getting the feel that other people are doing that as well. So it's something to think about.
Do you feel like your students are really being trained as an L&T trainer? Because there's so much that happens, you know, learning by example randomly from actually camping and actually cooking and actually being in the woods.
With the participants that we have had come through our trainer courses, and we've got several of the staff members there, I think they got just as good of a product as they would have got otherwise. You know, obviously we would like to sit in the woods and you know, discuss all of these things. But with the group of people that we had put together and the resources that we brought to bear, it seems that everyone that came through was quite satisfied with what they got and learned the material just as well as they would have learned it in you know, the standard format. The other nice thing about it that we actually didn't really mention, but that we are experiencing right now, is the fact that when you do a digital course like this, it's very, very diverse. We have had people from all over the country participate in our courses, which we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if we were just hosting our own courses here in Utah. You know, we'd get the same people from just our local area, but we got perspectives, you know, from people on the West Coast. We got perspectives from people in New England. We got perspectives from people in the Midwest about how Leave No Trace and outdoor ethics relates to their specific areas. So in a way, the course was kind of a little bit more enriching than it would have been otherwise, because we got so many diverse takes on what practicing Leave No Trace means for specific places.
That said, Lily, I think you'd find that just about every instructor would say, given the choice between the two, we prefer the in-person course.
Oh, and I wholeheartedly agree with that, but we play the hand that we're dealt, I guess, right now.
We want to have hobo packs.
There has been a recurring question or mention that comes up here in the chat a few times, and that's about submitting rosters to the center and whatnot. That's exactly the same with this course as you would do in a live course, and that's why going over the guidelines from the center is really important, because they lay out exactly what you have to do in a virtual course in order for it to be qualified as a course. So anything that you would do that way with regards to having it be kosher with the center and kosher with the BSA, you still have to do in an online format. It's just the way it's presented and the way things are taught is slightly different because it's not an in-person format.
And make sure you talk to the center first. They need to approve.
They'll take a look at your outline, and they'll see what you're training, and they will make sure that all the points are covered that they would like to see covered. And they do read them, and they do check them to make sure you've got all the important and required ones in there.
And this is trainer course specific that we're talking about right here. Do we have to follow guidelines from the center? A 101 course or an awareness course, that's a lot more open for how you want to do that.
That's good.
Once again, I'd say if you're thinking about doing it the first time, talk to somebody who's done it. That's your best next step.
And we have a number of resources tonight that have done that. Any other last questions as we get to the end?
Thanks, Graham. I saw you.
Polly, you're like a ghost. You come in and out of the water there.
Well, that's a good thing. That's what I like.
Paula's
Hello,
a
Andrew.
mermaid. Didn't you know that?
Andrew, I wanted to say hello. You're probably the farthest one away.
I think he's left.
I think I am the furthest away, and
There he is.
here I
Does
am.
everybody know Andrew Wright? He's coming to this from across the big pond.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
That's dedication, Andrew.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's been most informative.
Well, welcome. And our next course will be over in your place.
We were planning an ME course in Poland this summer, but unfortunately the pandemic got in the way.
Yes, didn't happen. Any last questions? Well, on behalf of Matt and Paul and Paula and Chandra and Vic, I want to thank you all for giving us your attention and time, and hopefully we have helped you to go out and start doing a little more virtual training, and we don't want to drop the ball on OE training for any of our scouts and scouters. It's really important, and we stand here ready to help you however we can. So if there are questions, please get them to us so that we can help you. We have some great resources in our OE community. I want to again remind you to please join us in 2 weeks for our first national virtual conference. Won't be quite like it might have been down in North Carolina, but it will suffice for this year. You should know that we are planning to get together next year at the summit for an abbreviated national conference. It's not going to be quite the same as a full conference, but we will be doing courses. We will be having pre-conference sessions. So think about that. I know, at least for those of you who are in the Northeast region, you get a barrage of emails from me saying, don't forget this and don't forget that. I apologize for that. No, not really. But we will be getting together next year for that. So couple weeks, the national conference. A few weeks after that, we're going to have our first roundtable with Mark Hammer talking about our annual reports. And then starting in the new year, we'll be having more roundtables, more OE roundtables.
Hey, Marshall.
Yes.
How do you register for that conference?
If you go online, you can, you're talking about the national?
Yes.
Virtual. If you go to the website, there's a registration link. And I see Mark Hammer's face, and if I am incorrect on that, he would have corrected me. But he hasn't. He's given me a thumbs up. Oh, I see a link. There it is.
Chandra.
John just put it up already. Okay. So I hope to see all of you. In fact, I suspect all of you have already registered. But if you know of people in your OE committees, please let them know. It is unbelievably wonderful to see these faces that I have not seen for so long. And so, hello, everyone. It's been great. And thank you very much for participating. Any last words from Matt or Paula or Chandra or?
Thanks.
Paul?
We'll see ya.
Okay. Bye all. Thank you.